You are listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer. Chitra Iyer is a parent of 25-year-old Shravan Iyer who has epilepsy, cerebral palsy and autism. She is the CEO of MFA and has been helping families with life-centered planning to reach their personal financial goals. She is also a trustee of a parent support group, the Forum for Autism, which was set up almost 2 decades ago. MFA is an 18-year-old organization in the personal finance space. They have set up a dedicated practice to help families with special needs children to plan their financial goals and invest for them. The thoughts shared here are a result of the discussion with parents, caregivers, siblings, and professionals regarding the planning of a person with special needs.
Hello, everyone. A big warm welcome to all of you on this expert series of my podcast for special needs children. Thank you for your time and agreeing to do this interview with me, dear Arman. Hi.
Hi, Chitra. How are you?
Great. And I'm so glad that you agreed to do this with me. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you so much for having me on this podcast today. And I think it's an honor. Thank you so much. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm waiting to just listen to your entire story and share it with all of the listeners. So here is a formal introduction to Mr. Arman Ali, everyone. He is the Executive Director of NCPEDP, that is the National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. A wheelchair user himself, he has spent over 2 decades advocating for disability rights and policies and is known as an expert in this field. Serving in advisory roles in various government and statutory authorities like the Election Commission of India, National Human Rights Commission, Ministry of Social Justice of Empowerment, Mr. Ali is on the mission to create an inclusive society where no one is left behind. Arman worked in the past as the HR Specialist Equal Opportunity Initiative team at Infosys. Following Infosys, he served as the Executive Director for Shishu Saroti, wherein he was instrumental in forging ties beneficial for people with disabilities and the organizations. Arman has been recognized for his work and is a recipient of various awards. I'm so happy to have you, and coming to you is my first question, Arman. Would love for you to share your journey this far. How has it been for you till now?
I think it's been fun. I think it's been a roller coaster, and I would not know how to live life if it is not the way it's been so far. That's the only way I know how to live. I am born and brought up in Guwahati, in Assam, and I moved to Delhi, say about 5.5 years back, 2018, with my current role as the ED of NCPEDP. And roller coaster ride. I had my own, share of struggles. Still struggle on many issues when it comes to interacting with various environment, various systems and services that I want to access. And because of the design we live in, because of the environment we live in, which is not designed thinking about the needs of disabled people, there's always a conflict. There's always a struggle. But it's fun. I think that's how life is. I think it's been super. I love what I do and do what I love.
That's lovely. How has it changed? But you're a person from the Northeast, and then what's been the difference when you've been working across the country? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's a privilege. In terms of the kind of work that I have been exposed to from working in the remote areas in the Northeast, in Assam, which had many other issues like militancy, disaster, conflicts and so on, and trying to find space for disability rights and disabled people in that scenario. And if you look at the Northeast India back in 2007-8 to 2018, there was a lot that we could do. We could bring disability into the discourse of everyday work in the government or any private sector or civil society organizations, and so on. I had the opportunity to travel across, meet people with disability in the grassroots, rural areas, look at their life, understand the challenges of disabled people, working with them, various government organizations, district level organizations. So I think that really gave me a lot of exposure to understand the issues on the ground. And whatever understanding that I was able to build over the 9 years of my leadership role with Shishu Sharathi, made it easier for me to come to Delhi and work with NCPEDP, which is again a policy change advocacy organization. So I'm able to bring forth that experience, the voices of disabled people who are deprived from basic right of education, employment, the ability to move from one place to another, and so on. And then it's also true in most part of India when it comes to rural part of the country and disabled people. They still struggle a lot. And something that I have worked personally on and traveled across the region. And I was able to also, constantly connect it with the National Disability Network, the National Disability Discourse, trying to bring out the voices of people who were far flung from a difficult terrain and other natural disaster and so on. So and I think it's meant to be. That's how the journey should be, where you come from the grassroots and you come to a national level to bring, so that you are able to voice out the concerns of people who have worked for decades.
Yeah. Arman, because I work in the field of finance and, and I'm guiding a lot of families in terms of how to, plan for the future for themselves and also for their children. Since you have been across India, I just wanted to ask you, how difficult is it, and are there any resources? Is there any help that being provided in terms of finances for, various disabled people?
No, I don't think so. I don't think disabled people is in the part of the planning of any government or any other private entity. If I start with government, if you only look at the budget, the budget of Government of India is about 40,000 crore, the budget which Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disability gets is 0.02%. It's about 1,200 crore. And if you're talking about a population of at least, if you look at WHO's data, the WHO data says 16% of the world population has some form of disability. So if you look at India at a 16% today, we are talking about 24 crore 80 lakhs people with disability living in India. And without investing in disability, without investing in creating an environment which is conducive for people with disability, systems, policies, health, infrastructure, education, everything, if it is not decided, keeping in mind the need of at least 25 crore people in our country, we will continue to remain an object of charity, something which will remain an after job, and an ad hocism will continue. So to answer to your question, there is no such systems that disability is looked at as an investment, where you are trying to create infrastructure or systems or policies or services or products which is friendly for disabled people, through which, if you look at services like transport services, whether you're using a public transport or a aggregated cab or an auto rickshaw, that thing is designed keeping in mind need of disabled people. Now, disability does not only mean that you are somebody who's on a wheelchair.
Right.
There are 21 categories of disability which the Government of India, recognizes under the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. And when you recognize that, and there's a law which says that, all products, services, infrastructure, buildings has to be accessible for people with disability. In order to do that, there needs to be investment made in disability, so that people with disability are not a cost, they start adding to the GDP. So I think that thought process is yet to take off, not only with the government and the private sector, but also with people with disability to some extent, where once you're deprived from basic human rights like education and the freedom of movement, then you yourself also think yourself as an object of pity, and you rely on other people's welfare or the government's welfare, look at a pension and not a salary that way. So, and any financial inclusion, I don't see efforts by large companies or organizations to talk about financial inclusion of people with disability in particular. There's no discourse around how do you save money, how do you invest money, and the understanding of finance per se. Communities, left far behind from the mainstream, and even from the other marginalized groups, if I may say so.
True. Trying my bit. Let's see what all happens.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to help and collaborate in whatever way we can.
Yeah. So, coming to what's happening for you today, can you please provide an overview of actually what is the National Center for Promotion of Employment of the Disabled, the NCPEDP, and its mission in promoting equality for people with disabilities?
Yeah. So, Chitra, NCPEDP is a 28-year-old organization. We are India's only organization which is focused on advocacy and inclusion of rights of persons with disability. If you look at the last 28 years or 2 decades of disability movement in India, NCPEDP has led this discourse, whether you talk of 2 legislation that we have had, whether you talk of inclusive, accessible elections, whether you talk of inclusion of disability into census data, the national education policy, the national building code, the hiring of persons with disability in the private sector, accessibility in aviation industry, railways, Ministry of Urban Affairs, and so on. So, we have constantly is what NCPEDP has been doing. NCPEDP runs a network of organizations of persons with disability. The National Disability Network is about 26 years old now, and we have partners across the country from all kinds of disability, all cross disability organizations are part of this network. So we run 2 awards, one to recognize persons and organizations who are promoting universal design and accessibility for persons with disability. That is called the Universal Design Award. This year is the 15th edition, which we will hold on 15th of August. Right now, the nominations are out. People are applying for it. Organizations who are doing work around accessibility and disability should come forward and apply. And the second award we hold is the NCPEDP Helen Keller Award, so which recognizes efforts made by organizations and people promoting employment for people with disability. So this year is a 25th year. So and the focus of NCPEDP are education, employment, accessibility, law, and policies, communication, and youth. So this is what we focus on. So anything that we do. So we run a fellowship for youth with disability. We have about 25 fellows across the country between the age of 18 to 25 who are working on various thematic areas. For example, climate change, employment, education. So maybe somebody in Madhya Pradesh, some small district working on education for girl child with disability or education for children with disability in UP. Employment for people with disability in Jalao district in UP, for example. There are fellows who are working on health. There are fellows who are working on multiple issues which is affecting people with disability on an everyday basis, and they are able to build evidence-based narrative so that disabled people's life at all stages are documented, and the gatekeeping and the discrimination they face on an everyday basis are brought forth at all level. And it does not only need to be talked about sitting in Delhi, Bombay, or Calcutta, or Bangalore, or Chennai, but right. From the hinterland of the country, from the people with disability themselves. So, for example, one of my fellow who is based out of Shillong, talking about accessible transport for people with disability. Now, considering Shillong is a hill, town and
hilly area completely.
It's a hilly area, and if you talk about accessible transport, so at least you are changing the discourse, you're challenging the status quo. So there's a lot that is happening around that. There's a committee set up by the government. My fellow who's there is leading it. So that we run a scholarship, we run a large advocacy program. For example, any ongoing discourse in the country, whether it was COVID. So we did a study on COVID, how COVID affected people with disability. So we did a study called Locked Down and Left Behind, and we recorded the impact of the first lockdown on people with disability. We just released 2 studies on one on education. What is the status of education for students with disability in India? And we just released one more report on the status of health for people with disability. So if you look at NCPEDP's work in the last 3 years, we have worked very hard on insurance for persons with disability. We're still not done with it, but we have racked up that issue with IRDAI, Insurance Regulatory Authority of India. We have been working on elections. This time, I think the status quo has changed. The discourse of disability has changed. The NCPEDP and our partners and the fellows, we have worked very tirelessly and created a manifesto for persons with disability. I don't know if you're aware that there are more than 1 crore registered voters, eligible voters with disability with the Election Commission of India. And since last year, we have been working on elections. Like last year, we started our discourse around political participation of people with disability with the elections in Karnataka. And then we followed with the 5 state elections like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Mizoram, Telangana. We went and met the political parties, told them what was the demand of disabled people. Now, it cannot be an afterthought. So if you look at this system of that we have around election, there is no outreach made by any political party to the disabled people. You are always looked at 500 rupees per month, 1,000 rupees per month, or 1,500 rupees per month, and that's about it. 1 crore vote is, I think, only the 20% of the total eligible voters with disability in the country. There must be over 5 to 6 crore or more disabled people who are voters, plus their family members. So if you put all this together, then at least 10 to 12 crore votes who is directly affected by disability. So why is there no outreach made to disabled people? That if you form the government, what will you do for people with disability in terms of education, in terms of climate change, in terms of employment, in terms of accessibility? What about representation of people with disability in the parliament? Why is the President of India not nominating somebody from the disability community to be represented? So we created this manifesto which has large, broad 10 demands, and we were able to give it to all the political parties. Congress, BJP, and CPM, they, somebody put 5 of our demand into their manifesto, somebody put 2, some put 9, and so on. So right from a Samajwadi Party to AAP to DMK, AIDMK to Trinamool Congress to NCP to Shiv Sena, we have not left anybody. And I and my team and my fellows and my partners, we traveled across the country. And this document that we prepared was from feedback from the people with disability. More than 15,000 of such people with disability have sent their feedback as to what they want in the manifesto. And it was endorsed by more than 600 organizations. And we have got large coverage across the media, whether it is electronic, print, or social media, and it's going on. And Chitra, if you are interested, I must also tell you that right now we are running a contest called "If I Were the Prime Minister, What Would I Do for the People with Disability?" in India.
I would love to circulate that. Really.
Yeah. So we have received more than 150 plus kind of nominations. People are sending videos, write-up, plus in sign language. What is their idea to make India more inclusive for people with disabilities? So after the election,
sounds fabulous.
Yeah. So the information is on our website, also on our social media. So this is what we do in a very nutshell. So so that the discourse around disability is not left behind. So like we also thought people with disability cannot just be an inspiration for other people to come and vote during elections. You see, Election Commission of India makes a lot of effort to make polling booths accessible. They're on helpline, they have apps. But it has to go beyond it, because the role of people with disability is not only as a voter. I mean, when you vote, you have the right to question whoever is representing whoever I voted for. And what is that party or that person who has become a member of the parliament or the member of the legislative assembly is doing for me as a person with disability? I mean, pension and reservation and concessions are non-negotiable. That's there for many other communities. But beyond that, in the mainstream discourse of education, health, employment, accessibility, budget, anything which law and order, climate change, anything which is happening around us, disabled people needs to have a seat on the table, to be discussed, to be asked about our opinion. So that is what is on right now with us. I just want to give you in a nutshell. I'm sorry if it was.
No, that was fabulous. Very, very nice that you went into those details, and actually, nobody knows the kind of groundwork that's already happening, and select people obviously know.
But Chitra, Chitra, you look at when you see anybody who's a person with disability, so there are certain stereotype comes to people's mind. Either you feel sorry about the person, or if the person is able to live life a little better than the other, you think he's an inspiration. Just the mere existence of somebody with their struggles on an everyday basis cannot be inspiring. So this discourse needs to change. The cost of this.
Yeah.
I live in Delhi. I'm from Guwahati, as I mentioned to you. For me to live in Delhi alone, to find a house where I can, stay alone has to be accessible. It is to find an accessible house. It is that much more, expensive. I have to have a personal vehicle for my mobility because I have a wheelchair. I just cannot get into any public transport because those are not accessible. And the cost so I cannot go and shop in a neighborhood, for example, or in a market where a large market like Sarojini or, in Bombay, you have the Bombay.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So you need to go to a mall. If I want to have a coffee with you, I can't be going to a coffee, just anywhere. I have to
find a local shop. Yeah.
Local or any standard coffee shop, you would say.
Right.
No, I have to go to a 5-star hotel or I have to go to a mall. So it is that much more expensive. And you don't get health insurance. If I am earning 10,000 rupees and you're earning 10,000 rupees and we both living in Delhi, who will save more money? You.
I will.
Yeah. So these discourses need to happen. The governments need to talk about it. And then the struggle of proving yourself that, yes, I have a disability. The whole life goes in getting a disability certificate. After you get a disability certificate, you try to prove that despite my disability, I'm able to participate in education. I'm able to participate in the labor market. I can participate in the social life. There's so much of gatekeeping. There's so much to struggle, to your identity, the politics of identity of disabled people. And then there are terminologies like differently abled and specially abled. How does it matter? And then you call Divyangjan. I mean, just terminologies does not change lives of people.
Absolutely correct. Yeah.
No, and this is what we bring to the table. Where we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's sad that only the person with disability or a family who has a person with disability knows exactly what's happening.
They also don't realize, no?
Yeah. True.
So that's what.
Yep. Having worked closely and putting in so much of effort, whether it is through this election commission process or National Human Rights Commission, is there how do you leverage all of these provisions to advance the cause of disability? I know you've been part of many.
This gives you a platform to being So there are other people with disability who are part of this kind of statutory authority bodies, and it's very important to have a seat on the table. So it's important that you are consulted and you have the kind of knowledge that you can share, which will impact millions of people with disability. So we do leverage this, for example, with Election Commission, you give your suggestions, ideas, you look at the processes they have, what is the idea of a polling booth? So like in 2019, when I went to vote, my polling booth was on the first floor, and I was carried by five people to vote. I put up a complaint with the Election Commission of India, and after that, there was this order that all polling booth has to be now on ground floor. And then there are other systems that you talk about there, because as I mentioned, there's 21 categories of disability. People who are double amputee, the people who have no legs, people who have other intellectual disability, invisible disability. So sensitizing the entire the machinery about disability, I think it's a huge task. And having people with disability part of that committee to advise the election commissions makes a lot of difference. And again, role of NHRC, it's more like a watchdog, and insurance is something we work very closely with the National Human Rights Commission. We partnered with them to start the interaction between disabled people and insurance companies about health insurance for people with disability. So that all that really helps, and you add more power to the discussions that we have.
Absolutely. And I think as how many ever more people can be on it, like you rightly said, only then the voice will be heard, right?
Yes.
More and more to advocate. So can you please share any personal anecdotes or stories that inspired you along your journey?
I don't know. There are many anecdotes, right? I think, for me, if you look at my struggle on an everyday basis, like, sometimes once in the Uber, in Chennai, I was asked to get off the Uber because my wheelchair was not fitting into the boot. And as a result of that, I missed my flight to Bangalore. I had to buy, another ticket costing 18,000 rupees just because that Uber guy did not let me. I missed my meeting in Bangalore, and then it cost me so much more. And it goes on. So I mentioned that my polling booth was on first floor. Being somebody who was associated with election commission, somebody who's known. If it can happen with me, imagine the plight of people with disability living in rural areas, people who are poor, people who don't have education. So they don't even ask, they don't even see the light of the day. So my anecdotes are also, struggle are there. It happens every time when you are traveling. I travel a lot. So when you want to fly, airlines, how they treat you, when you want to go to, I'll tell you once I was in Jaipur, and then Jaipur is a big mall. I was there with my brother and my niece, and while my niece and my brother were buying something from the garment store, I was looking at a store opposite to that, which had some snacks to buy, like some chips and snacks of a thing. While I was looking at the packet, the watchman comes and tell me, "Sir, today there is a lot of people. You come tomorrow to check all this." So he thought because I'm on a wheelchair, I don't have the ability to buy. I don't have the money to buy it. And so I'm just here to see the product, because mall, you get a wheelchair, so people take you around. That's a practice. When you go to a mall, there's a wheelchair available, so people come, elderly people and other people who, then are shown just for like a recreation. I told him, I'm looking at it to buy. Then he again repeated that, "Sir, I understand we can come after some time. There is a lot of people, right? There's a lot of rush right now." I had to talk to the manager, escalated, file a complaint, tweet to the police, and so on. So, so if this can happen with me, and then, as I mentioned to you, Chitra, there's nothing is designed keeping in mind people with disability. The people with disability are not, want everything in free. So if I'm going to a shop, and if the shop is accessible, if I'm going to a restaurant with my friend, my girlfriend, my family, or my parents, or my colleagues, if 5 people, 3 people are going, I'm going to pay for whatever I eat or whatever I buy. Anyway, whether it is service, whether it is, if I'm ordering food on a food delivery app, it is not coming to me free. So if the app is made accessible for people who are blind, or if your restaurant is accessible, or if your store is accessible, if everything is accessible, people are going to add to your business. But it's the other way around. You told, please, we don't have accessibility. It's a safety issue. We cannot accommodate much. So I think in this era where India is one of the world's youngest country, why disabled people are being left behind. And there are millions of them here. And my anecdotes are, I'm able to handle it. I tweet. I'm able to put it in media. I know the knowledge of my right. I do understand where I can fight back. And if it happens with other disabled people, if somebody who is living alone or trying to go, and is somebody facing some problem in transport, they don't come and tell their family, because if they tell their family, the family will say, please don't go anywhere because you already have a disability, and if something else happens to you, then what will we do? So they stop you from, and then you are cautioned and cushioned around you, and then you don't become a part of the community. Then you are isolated, and then you remain an object of pity and welfare, and then you are becoming differently able for no reason. So so this is the problem and this is my anecdote. This is what I want to say. This is what I hear on an everyday basis. I keep telling about this girl who contacted me from Pune, saying that I have a locomotor disability. I've done BCom, but I'm not getting to do any internship somewhere, and everybody rejects because I have this disability. So telling me, sir, can you help? I have disability, but I can walk. Who says that? Okay, that when you have a disability and you have a locomotor and I can still walk, why are we being apologetic about our identity? Today you don't say that for a woman, that I'm a woman, but you can treat me like a man, that you treat the other boys. You don't say that.
Right.
There's so much of intersectionality is there and sensitivity is there, and these are important. But when it comes to a person with disability, this is a double whammy on you. First, prove that you have a disability, get a certificate, and then prove that despite your disability, you will be able to do the task that you are given, whether it is education, whether it is employment, or you're part of any discourse or any activity which have other human interactions. So this is what is I do, and every day I question this, and I don't know. There are many like me who are into this, and the good thing today, So and the good thing, Chitra, that India is a young country, and a lot of young people with disability are able to articulate themselves. They are able to pick up issues as they want.
True. Yeah. So Arman, there will be many people who are associated with disability. There will be disabled people themselves. There will be families who will be listening to this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So what message would you like to convey to each of them about the importance of rights of a person with disability and the role that each one of us can play in promoting inclusion and accessibility?
I will just, very basic, okay? It is in the nature of things that rights must be fought for. Right is something that doesn't come to you in a platter. You need to understand, you have to know your right, and you have to demand. And if you don't do it, you will remain an afterthought and you will always be left behind. Or whatever is given to you is not the main course, only the leftover. So for families, for people with disability, first know who you are and don't be apologetic about self. Whatever it may be your disability. We are the first class citizen of this country. We want to be part of the nation building of this great country and not somebody who is a cost. To do that, we need to come forward and ask questions, participate, because everything built around us is made by our contribution, because we are all tax-paying citizen of this country. And anything that you do, whether you are a private sector or a government or an event manager or a wedding planner or running a business, you must imagine there is a person with disability who is your customer or a client or a beneficiary or a partner, but there is a person with disability there. So anything that we do, we must keep that in mind, that there will be disabled people who will be coming to use the facility or service or the building or the transport and education, health, and anything that you do, you just imagine that there will be people with disability, and not all disabled people are on wheelchairs. Some disabilities which is not visible. So we have to take everybody.
I think this is very, very, very apt and very pointed to remember. I think all of us forget. This is so basic, and it will really help in thinking through how we want to change things at our end.
So if you plan something right from the drawing board, it doesn't cost you a thing.
Perfect. Yeah.
But if you want to retrofit after you made a building and you want to make it accessible, it costs you extra money, which kind of...
Yeah. And I loved what you said about rights, that it needs to be fought out. But what if, if we could all have that in our heart, that this is something so basic, and why don't I just give it, and factor it in what I'm doing, so that someone doesn't have to come and fight with me for it. It was very powerful what you said.
Thank you.
Arman, coming to the last question, 3 essential changes that you envision for better support and services for individuals with disability in India. What would these 3 be?
3 changes that I want in India. One, that disability inclusion becomes part of compliance. Like you want GST if you want to do business. Like anything that you do needs a permission, like a fire safety, GST, environment, pollution, and so on. Disability should be part of the compliance. Second, disabled people should have political participation and representation at all level of governance. People who have competent disability, just your identity does not make you eligible for that. Those who are competent and contribute to that thing. And third, and the most important thing I think is required to have an accurate data of people with disability in India. Where are they? What kind of disability do they have? And what is the kind of support they need? Without data, we will not be able to do what we want to do, plan for the country, plan for people with disability, and contribute to the great nation to grow to the biggest economy in the world.
I think that was really super in terms of your roundup. I'll just repeat that. First is disability inclusion needs to become part of compliance of everything we do. Participation in elections is a must, and having accurate data of people in India, which gives us so much more need to do so many things around disability, right? And I think the biggest takeaway for me from this interview today is everything you do, everything you think, always think as that your customer can be a disabled person. So that is just lovely. Arman, I'd request you to please share about the website, or where is the resource place for anybody to come read about all of the research papers that were issued, or whatever work you did that you shared about during COVID for the NCPEDP. What is the website where people can read up? Where do people go?
ncpedp.org. That's our website, ncpedp.org. All this information that I mentioned is on our website.
Okay.
And it also has our helpline number. It has our, office number. People.
Okay. And all these contests that you run or anything new
there.
that you are asking, all of those are available there.
All of
Brilliant.
that are available. Yes. Also on our social media, ncpedp_India on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook.
Fabulous. I'm going to put up all of that along with this so that more and more people are aware and they can join you in your mission. Thank you so much for being so articulate, for being so pointed, and sharing your views so beautifully, really. I'm honored that you came over, and I know this is just a half an hour, but it was amazing listening to your entire journey. And more power to you and your team for all the work that you're doing for all of us, Arman. Thanks a ton.
Thank you so much. It means a lot, Chitra. Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer, the CEO of MFA and a trustee with the Forum for Autism. If you find this podcast relevant and interesting, it will be great if you leave a review, share, like, and subscribe. You can also let us know if there is any specific topic that you would like us to cover. Feel free to email her on chitra.iyer@myfinad.com, or you can call her on 9833-785-892. That is 9833-785-892.